Hello. Listen, Jake, I'm not against you going to your class reunion. You were born in a small town near Seattle, and you'll get to walk through places full of memories, all that nostalgic stuff. But why can't you take me along, a slightly curvy, petite, shapely brunette with beautiful, wavy blonde hair didn't want to tell her husband she was jealous. But that was exactly the truth. Back when they were just friends getting to know each other, Jake had talked her ears off about a classmate who was madly in love with him. Katie had a wealthy father and thought everyone owed her something, but Jake refused to date her just to spite the bratty, though pretty girl. Katie was livid. She fawned over him, threatened him, even hooked up with Jake's friends to get back at him, and he loved it. Later, he even regretted not building a relationship with her. Life had been tough, and Katie's dad could have given him a leg up. Plus, a gorgeous, obsessive girl who's crazy about you. That's a romantic tale, isn't it? It was only after Jake fell in love with Ellen that he stopped bringing up those who once chased him. But Ellen had her suspicions. She didn't buy that Jake was as indifferent to Katie as he claimed. Maybe he said he turned her down out of ego. Who knows how it really went? Maybe it was the other way around. That's what Ellen believed. That's why she was scared to let her husband go alone. Another reason was that Jake was still incredibly attractive. Approaching 40, a decade older than her, he was so alluring, so magnetic, not just to Ellen. People, even strangers on the street, would stare, envying her, saying he's handsome, hardworking, polite, and so gentle with his wife. Lucky her. By traditional beauty standards, Jake didn't fit the mold. Too skinny, tall, lanky, a bit clumsy with overly long arms and a slight hunch. But those thick, soft, light brown hair and sparkling blue eyes, his smile could make even Brad Pitt jealous, those dimples, that tender look, even a touch of shyness. When they met, Ellen fell for him instantly, but hid it for a while. Jake had plenty of suitors, so she acted like she just enjoyed being friends. But she won him over. Jake was the first to show interest, saying their friendship had grown into something deeper. That's how it happened. Jake never knew how many sleepless nights Ellen spent during their so-called friendship, how she listened with burning jealousy to every little romantic story he told. He showed her a photo of Katie only once, but Ellen etched it into her memory, a tiny giggly girl with huge green eyes and wavy red hair. Stunning, no question. Listen, Ellen, what would you do in that little town? It's deadly dull. I wouldn't even go myself, but my classmates kept insisting, Jake said. He had no clue about her anxieties. Ellen was a master at concealing them. Well, we had other plans for your days off, she said, not daring to remind him they'd agreed to seriously pursue adopting a child. Jake wasn't thrilled about adoption, but had agreed since they couldn't have kids of their own. They'd planned to start the process this spring, and now he was leaving. What plans, Jake asked, either genuinely forgetting or pretending it wasn't clear. After a brief silence, he added, "Besides, you don't exactly have the best relationship with my mom, and I'm planning to stay at her place before heading to the reunion." That argument was the clincher. His mother, Margaret, didn't like Ellen, not just because she hadn't given her a grandchild in 5 years of marriage. There were other reasons, but the main one was that they were complete opposites. Ellen lived by her heart, adored animals, and worked as a veterinary assistant for next to nothing, truly believing money wasn't the most important thing. Margaret was convinced pets were nonsense and extra trouble. A wife should earn at least as much as her husband, maybe more. Margaret calculated everything, living strictly by reason. The only thing they shared was their love for Jake. Ellen thought she definitely didn't want to see Margaret again. She loathed conflicts. Margaret believed that sparks should fly between people. Only through shouting arguments, even cutting remarks, could the truth come out. But there was a catch. Only Margaret got to yell and argue, while everyone else was supposed to marvel at her wisdom and put up with it. Yeah, you're probably right. Better to avoid too much contact with your mom. A shaky peace is better than none. Ellen agreed. The next day, Ellen saw Jake off at the bus station. Barely holding back tears, she gave him a whole bag of homemade pastries with different fillings. Jake adored them. She was still waving as the bus pulled away, and he smiled back. It's only a few days, she thought to herself, now alone. Jake had just left, and she was already counting down to his return, thinking about what to cook to surprise him. He was a foodie and loved her culinary experiments. The next day, he didn't call or reply to her calls or messages. Ellen considered calling Margaret, but decided to wait a little longer. Late that evening, when she was in tears and on edge, Jake finally dialed her number. Jake, what's going on? I was so worried. The only thing keeping me calm was knowing you were staying at your mom's, Ellen said. Oh, listen, things got wild. Work called and I have to go on an urgent business trip. I barely made it to the reunion, and then this came up. Jake explained, saying a coworker got sick. The pay was good, but he was so swamped he forgot to call. Wait, you have days off, Ellen said, puzzled. She felt he wasn't telling the whole story. She even feared something bad had happened, and he didn't want to admit it. Jake could be secretive at times. Yeah, I know, but what can I do? Your husband's such a valuable asset, they're lost without me. He chuckled. When should I expect you? I hate to bring it up, but we were supposed to go to the orphanage. I was really looking forward to your time off. Ellen murmured, Look, why are you getting all weepy? It's not the end of the world. Go by yourself. This is your thing, right? Your husband's out making money. What's the issue? Jake said now, sounding irritated. I don't understand. Even if you're working, why didn't you answer? Am I nothing to you? The day's stress overwhelmed her, and Ellen burst into tears. What's with you acting like a child? Of course I love you. You're my wife, but that doesn't mean I have to be a doormat. I'll deliberately not call for a few days so you stop trying to control me, Jake said. Ellen thought he was kidding, but for the next few days he really didn't call, only sending messages. Done sulking. Learn to trust your husband. Still held up. Don't know when I'll be back. And so on. She imagined all sorts of scenarios that Jake had met Katie and decided he no longer needed his wife, or that Margaret had turned him against her. Or maybe he'd simply fallen out of love but hadn't found the courage to say it. Ellen felt she was driving him nuts and he'd gone to escape her. The most optimistic theory was that he had work problems and hadn't lied, just didn't tell her how serious they were to avoid upsetting her. But none of these ideas lifted her spirits. Fine, I'll go to the orphanage myself. Maybe I'm just overthinking. Work can get tricky. She decided, choosing to live as if everything was normal until she had proof otherwise. At the orphanage, they shrugged and said, No, healthy kids available right now. Well, since I'm here, let me see anyway, Ellen replied. Her heart somehow sensed her child was there even if they weren't healthy. With a sigh, the caretaker brought out 4 children. 3 were siblings with mild developmental delays. Their parents' situation isn't fully settled. Both are in jail. It's a mess, not advisable, the caretaker said. Then Ellen noticed a curly light-haired boy with striking blue eyes. He was pale and sad, but somehow captured her heart. What about him? She asked. Oh, that's Oliver. He's got a limp born with it. Needs costly surgery. We're on a waiting list for funding, but it's uncertain if it'll help, the caretaker whispered. That doesn't scare me, Ellen said. She handed out treats and coloring books she'd brought, then approached the boy. Why so sad? She asked the child, who looked about 8. What's there to be happy about? He said, surprised. Ellen remembered Oliver's grandmother had recently passed, and he had no other family. She felt guilty for asking such a dumb question, upsetting him. Don't worry, the caretaker says to smile, or no one will choose you. But I don't want to fake it. Besides, I'm broken, Oliver sighed. Broken? Who said that? Ellen asked. Everyone knows I can't walk, right? He said, waving a hand. That's not important. What matters is that you're a good person, and you'll absolutely have the very best parents. Ellen said, her eyes welling up. The boy looked at her hopefully. They say different things here, he said. Don't listen to them. I know for sure everything will be okay, Ellen said. She desperately wanted to take him home right then and be the best mom so Oliver would never doubt he was wanted. Could you be my mom? He asked, suddenly blushing. I'd love to, Ellen admitted, pausing. She couldn't promise anything yet. She had to talk to Jake. But she'd made up her mind. No obstacles frightened her. Then come back if you can, Oliver said, gently, giving a shy smile. I will, Ellen promised. I like you. The boy confessed. You're cool too, she replied honestly. Really? Oliver asked. Of course. I don't know how to pretend either, she said. That simple exchange changed their lives. Ellen began dreaming of becoming Oliver's mom, and Oliver started believing life could improve. Such a kind woman wouldn't lie. That day, Ellen's mood brightened on its own. She couldn't wait to tell Jake about this wonderful boy. Her shock was immense when she opened the door and saw Jake in the kitchen, casually sipping tea. Hey, I thought you'd left me. Isn't today your day off? He said. Ellen was dumbfounded, her legs nearly giving out. His behavior was strange, and she wasn't prepared for his sudden return. Why didn't you call? I didn't cook anything, she stammered. No big deal. I'll make do with what's here. So where were you? Swear, he asked again. At the orphanage. We planned that? Or did you forget? Ellen mumbled, staring at the floor, feeling oddly guilty under his stern gaze, though she knew Jake was the one in the wrong. He'd shown up without warning and was now questioning her. And what found someone suitable? He asked without enthusiasm. Yes, I even photographed Oliver. She showed him the picture. He looks kind of unhealthy, Jake remarked. What? He's wonderful. Ellen began sharing her meeting with the boy. Jake listened half-heartedly, clearly lost in his own thoughts. Listen, Ellen, this is all interesting, but what if the surgery doesn't work? We're not rich, you know. And you see, I've got work problems. I don't want to talk about it, but to be honest, kids aren't my priority right now. Ellen watched him closely. He seemed absorbed in thought, like he'd come from another world. The usual caring, attentive Jake had been replaced. So, it was work troubles after all. Ellen felt a slight relief and stopped pushing, focusing on making dinner. But her intuition kept buzzing in her ear. Something wasn't right. Jake spoke in vague terms, almost unsure of what he was saying, which could mean he was hiding something. She knew him too well. The evening passed with trivial chatter, as if Jake hadn't vanished for days without a word. He only griped about his boss and shared stories about work buddies. Ellen played along, avoiding anything significant, mentioning how the vet clinic got new equipment, making it easier to help animals in tough cases. She knew Jake didn't care about her job, but she had to fill the awkward silences. Silence was terrifying. Her legs trembled. She couldn't just walk away. It felt like if she did, Jake would disappear again, this time for good. A nagging feeling grew that their family life was falling apart. His sudden disappearance and return were just the prelude. Bigger problems were likely ahead. A week went by, and Ellen hoped Jake would open up, but he became a total stonewaller. Desperate, she took a bold step and called Margaret. "Hello, Margaret. How are you?" Jake asked. "What you'd like for your birthday," she said. It was just an excuse. She couldn't outright ask if Jake had stayed at her place as he'd told her. Margaret was prickly and might dodge the question or tease her for asking directly, enjoying her confusion. Strange question. "My birthday's 11 months away," Margaret said, clearly thrown off. Ellen rarely called, let alone asked about gifts so far in advance. "I mean, didn't Jake ask you? We wanted to prepare something special, and it might need to be ordered early. But then we thought, what if you don't like it?" Ellen rambled, realizing she sounded nonsensical. "Listen, he wasn't even at my place. Just tell me what you're planning to gift me." "An elephant from Africa." Margaret laughed. Ellen was so stunned to learn Jake hadn't stayed with his mom that she wanted to hang up without explaining. Maybe he decided to crash at a friend's after the reunion and forgot my request, she added weakly. "Oh, that's Jake for you. He didn't even go to that reunion," Margaret said. Ellen's heart pounded harder. He'd lied about everything, staying at his mom's, then rushing off on a business trip. "How do you know if he wasn't at your place?" she asked. "I ran into his classmates." "You can ask Mike, his buddy. You know him well," Margaret said with a sly tone. "Figure out what you two are up to." Ellen quickly said goodbye and hung up. She knew Mike. They'd attended his wedding with Jake. She dialed his number right away. "Hey, what's up?" he asked. "Why do you think something's wrong?" she replied. "Well, Jake promised to show up at the reunion, but bailed. Word is he went to a restaurant with Katie, just the two of them. Didn't bother with us regular folks. You guys fighting or what?" Mike asked. "Know what? She's just some classmate. We're fine. I'm calling for another reason I lost Anna's number." "I need to talk to her about something important," Ellen mumbled, scrambling for a cover story. Mike's revelation hit her like a blow to the head. "What the OBGYN? Congrats on the baby." Mike said never one for tact. "Don't spill everything. We women have our secrets." Ellen joked, dodging the painful reminder that she couldn't conceive naturally. "All right, here's a secret. Anna's pregnant too." "Don't tell she asked to keep it. Hush, hush. Wouldn't it be awesome if you both had kids at the same time?" Mike laughed heartily and gave her Anna's number. Ellen hadn't figured out what to say to Anna, so she put off calling. That evening, she casually brought it up with Jake. "Oh, I called Anna, Mike's wife. She said she saw you with Katie. Old flames don't fade, huh? That's why you didn't want me along." Ellen tried to keep her tone light and breezy, but it came out strained, and she was on the verge of tears. "What? Was she even at the reunion?" "How would she know?" Jake said, sounding outraged. "Yeah, don't you remember Ellen bluffed trying to corner him? Maybe she was there, but she's got it all wrong." "I didn't see Katie at all. They say she's off on vacation with her new husband." Jake said, his face reddening. He was clearly improvising. "That's weird. I thought she got divorced," Ellen said. After Mike's bombshell, she'd looked up Katie. She'd gone through a divorce, winning half her rich ex-husband's fortune. "Maybe she did. How would I know? Unlike you, I'm not obsessed with Katie's life. You know I barely escaped her in high school and college. Why would I care about her now?" Jake said with a forced air of indifference. It was in the news. I came across it by chance, some big scandal. But I don't recall the details. Ellen lied. She remembered the scandal clearly. Katie discovered her husband had a secret second family, and during a press conference declared she'd loved someone else all those years. So she wasn't too broken up about the split. What's with this interrogation? Jake snorted and stormed out of the room. Half an hour later, he announced work had called him urgently, even though it was evening. Jake kept acting stranger by the day. Calm down, think. Just because he met her doesn't mean he's seeing her, or doesn't love me, Ellen told herself, sorting through Jake's clothes in the closet. Cleaning always calmed her nerves. Jake never let her touch his things when he was around, always locking the closet, which she found peculiar. He'd claim her cleaning made it impossible to find anything. Today he'd rushed out and left it unlocked. It wasn't just about tidying up, she wanted to know what he was hiding. As she carefully folded his scattered clothes, she found stacks of cash hidden under several layers. Ellen couldn't believe her eyes. The bundles were heavy, filled with large bills. She did the math in her head. The amount was enough to buy 2 apartments like theirs, maybe with some left over. Hysterical, she tossed the neatly folded clothes and money in a heap, collapsed on the floor, and sobbed. I don't understand, she said out loud, though she was alone. Where did you get this money? Why are you hiding it? What's going on? No one answered. Of course. Ellen sat on the floor staring at the stacks of cash, as darkness fell, too drained to keep crying. A phone call jolted her out of her daze. It was her friend Daisy, who worked with her at the vet clinic. Why do you sound so wrecked? Daisy asked. It's a whole quest, too much to explain. Ellen groaned. I've got time. I'm just lazing around today. Daisy said. Well, you asked for it. Ellen wasn't one to air her grievances, but this time she broke her own rule, pouring out everything that had been eating at her these past days. She needed to vent, or she'd lose her mind. You're serious, and you still haven't tried following him, Daisy gasped. How I'm at work all day, and on weekends, what just stalk him? Ellen asked plaintively. Oh, I'll cover for you for a couple of days. You'll figure it all out. Nothing's worse than not knowing, Daisy explained. So, that means I don't trust him, Ellen muttered. Exactly. And you've got good reason. What's the problem? You have every right to know what he's keeping from you. You don't have to waste years on someone who might be lying, Daisy replied. Ellen wasn't entirely convinced. She believed everyone deserved some personal space, but Jake had driven her to sleepless nights and near hysteria. With no better options, she decided to follow Daisy's advice. That same week, Ellen pretended to head to work, but called a taxi and waited for Jake to leave. To her surprise, he didn't go to his office, but drove to a completely different address. That's the office of their competitors. They don't even deal with them, she thought, utterly confused. She decided to head to Jake's workplace. At the entrance, the guard hesitated to let her in. I'm Jake Nichols' wife, you know me? Ellen said, assuming some new rule barred relatives when the employee wasn't present. Yeah, I remember you. Here to make a scene. It's no use. Your husband was fired for serious violations. The boss was furious. He's lucky he got anything at all. The guard said tiredly, he didn't do anything wrong. Ellen said automatically, her mind reeling. She realized she knew nothing about her husband. Oh, sure, covering for him. Probably bought you expensive gifts with the money he got from the competitors. The guard said, then caught himself realizing he'd said too much. He sternly ordered her to leave and never come back. If you don't go, I'll escort you out. What a family, just trouble. Ellen ran out, tears streaming, not waiting to be humiliated as the wife of a crook. She had no idea what to expect next, but resolved to confront Jake that evening. So, how was your day? She asked when Jake came home, supposedly from work. Oh, the usual, some minor hiccups. Why are you so red-faced? He asked. I didn't go to work today. Ellen said, her cheeks flushed with anger. Why not? He asked, surprised. Following your lead. You haven't been at work either, not for a while now. But you lied to me. Did you really leak client information and get fired? She asked directly, still smarting from the shame at the guard's desk. What are you even talking about? Jake said, clearly annoyed. I followed you. I know you were sacked, Ellen said. Okay, fine, I had to find another job. That doesn't mean I leaked anything. I was framed, he muttered. And what about all that money? Where's it from? Ellen had carefully refolded his clothes as they were, but now admitted she'd found the cash in the closet. You swiped my key, he snapped, indignant. The closet was open, Ellen said, tears welling up. He was the one at fault, yet he always turned it around on her, which infuriated her. All right, since you found it, I took out loans to start my own business. As for the competitors, I went to them only after I was betrayed. I don't owe my old boss anything after his dirty trick. Don't you think so? Jake asked. Loans, you have zero experience running a business. Are you trying to get us into trouble? Ellen said, terrified. He'd plunged them into problems and kept it all secret, even though it affected both of them. They gave me a department to manage, not a huge deal. I'm just a junior partner leading a team. It's a solid plan, all set up. I'm not risking much, just paying small percentages. Soon I'll be a real businessman, no more putting up with idiots like my old boss Jake explained. Then, if we have money coming, we can adopt Oliver Ellen, said aloud, trying to find a silver lining. Are you trying to get on my nerves? There's no time for that lame kid right now. I've got bigger things to deal with, and I need some calm at home, Jake declared with an air of importance. I understand, but if money comes in fast, we shouldn't wait. Someone else could adopt him. He feels like my own, and he's hoping I'll take him. Ellen said, convinced fate was aligning to make her Oliver's mom, especially with Jake's business prospects. Listen, maybe someday, but definitely not anytime soon. This conversation's over, Jake said. Ellen ran out of the room in tears. Jake let out a sigh of relief. He hadn't intended to tell her the truth and felt he'd dodged a bullet. Like, I'd just admit I spent a night with Katie and borrowed her money. The yelling would have been deafening, he muttered to himself alone. Jake was unaware that his current benefactors had deceived him, setting him up to run a project doomed to fail. For now, he was basking in the illusion of being on the cusp of big money. Meanwhile, Ellen was suffocating in the next room. The orphanage director had made it clear he couldn't wait indefinitely for Jake to make a decision. Oliver misses you too, but there are good people ready to adopt him. It's not every day someone wants a boy with a defect. If you disappear, we'll lose these parents. Think it's easy to place him, Ivan said bluntly. He clearly wanted to offload the limping boy before the surgery's outcome was known, essentially washing his hands of him. Ellen couldn't persuade Ivan to wait even a little longer, though Jake had said they could soon be wealthy. Happiness seemed so close, yet it was slipping through her fingers. That's what she thought over the next 2 weeks. She felt awful, her head spun, and she was nauseous. Enough torturing yourself, girl. Get checked, Daisy said, handing her a pregnancy test with a meaningful smile. No way. The doctor said there's almost no chance, Ellen said, turning pale. She'd given up hope of becoming a mother naturally years ago after yet another medical checkup. There's a huge difference between almost and 100%. Go do it right now, don't put it off, Daisy insisted. To Ellen's shock, she learned she was likely pregnant. Unable to believe it, Daisy ran to the pharmacy and bought more tests. Ellen confirmed it, she was indeed pregnant. The world burst into new colors. She flew home, seeing everything in a new light. Jake loves me. He sensed we'd have a child on some intuitive level and decided to earn more. It's a shame about Oliver, but he's probably with good parents now, so it's all for the best, she thought. A couple of days earlier, she'd met Victor the trucker who'd adopted Oliver. He seemed dependable, having long dreamed of a child, though his wife Lucy wasn't enthusiastic about adopting Oliver. Victor said he'd support and provide for them, and Lucy would come around. Oliver was happy to have a family, but whispered to Ellen that she'd have been a better mom. Secretly, Ellen gave him her phone number and address so she could check on him, assuring him he was still important to her. Oliver was overjoyed, tucking the note in his pocket and waving goodbye. It felt like all the tragedies had evaporated. Ellen was as happy as she could possibly be. "We're having a baby!" she shouted to Jake the moment she stepped through the door. "What I thought Oliver was adopted," he grumbled. "No, you don't get it. I'm pregnant. The test showed 2 lines. I'm going to give birth to our own child." Ellen was overflowing with excitement, throwing herself into his arms when he didn't move to embrace her. Jake held her, stiffly kissed her forehead, and said, "Listen, I thought there was no chance." "You said so yourself." Ellen looked at him, startled. Judging by his expression, he seemed to have hoped she'd never get pregnant. He looked downright upset. "Don't be scared, I'll give birth, and everything will be fine," she said, assuming he was worried about her health. "You'll give birth, of course. Mom will be thrilled," he said, heading outside, saying he needed to get some air. There was still no joy on his face. Maybe he's just overwhelmed with happiness, Ellen thought, but it didn't feel true. No one meets news of a long-awaited first child with such a sour expression. A huge gap seemed to be forming between them. "So, that's why you asked about a gift. You meant your pregnancy." "When were you going to tell me about my grandchild?" Margaret said, misinterpreting the situation, thinking Jake had accidentally spilled the beans about a birthday surprise for her. "No, it's not that. I didn't even know back then," Ellen sighed. Margaret launched into a long list of advice, mostly superstitions and questionable medical tips like pinning safety pins on her skirt to ward off the evil eye or drinking odd herbal brews. Ellen had no intention of following any of it, of course. Margaret started calling multiple times a day, asking if Ellen had tried her suggestions. When Ellen confessed she wasn't going to do any of that nonsense, Margaret got angry. "You'll lose my grandchild, you just wait. You'll kill your own child with your stubbornness," she ranted, predicting that Ellen would regret it her whole life. "How can you say that? You're a mother yourself. The doctor said there's a high risk of miscarriage, that I can't get stressed and need to take care." "And here you are, stirring me up," Ellen said, as Margaret kept goading her. "And quit that job of yours. Who needs those animals? They just spread germs." Margaret continued her tirade, showing no sign of stopping her attacks. "I love my job, but if you don't stop lecturing me, I'll stop talking to you," Ellen declared at last. She didn't know how else to shield herself from the venomous words and constant tension. "Well, look at that, we've raised a viper in our bosom," Margaret said, ready to unleash more, but Ellen couldn't take it anymore. For the first time in her life, she blocked Margaret's number. She needed to calm down and stop listening to her mother-in-law. Jake doesn't care, and his mom's waiting for this baby, but both of them are just crushing me, not helping at all, Ellen thought. She shuddered, recalling how Jake came home late with a vacant look, never asking how she felt, just eating, drinking, and sleeping. Their home was turning into a hotel where she was nothing more than a servant. Jake did have reasons to be preoccupied. His new bosses had slowly pulled him into a financial pyramid scheme without him realizing it. The profits he'd been promised still hadn't materialized. According to your schedule, I should be rolling in money by now. Maybe we should call it quits before it's too late. Jake said to Dimitri, the main representative of his new bosses after months of taking losses, "You're the one who recruited people. If you didn't manage them well, that's not our problem." Dimitri said, a smug, stocky man tossing documents in front of him that showed Jake was falling behind. "By the way, if you want to back out now, the penalty fee will be this amount." When Jake saw that he owed far more than he'd invested a lot more, he went cold. He was starting to suspect there was no chance of success at this new job, but he had no idea what to do next. Katie had grown up since their school days and was now a sharp calculator. She wouldn't be happy to hear he'd lost her money. "Get rich and marry me in exchange for my help," she'd told him, though marriage hadn't been explicitly mentioned. Now, Jake was in a dead-end, broken debt, and only his wife would still have him. She'd surely forgive him. But Katie would definitely spill the beans about his infidelity and call him a dishonest man. To top it all off, what was he supposed to do about this job that was clearly headed for disaster? Wait a bit longer or quit and be saddled with enormous debts? Jake couldn't sleep, deciding to take a gamble and hope for a miracle. "All right, I'll put in a bit more," he told Dimitri, dreading the upcoming conversation with Katie, who was expecting profits but would face another request for a loan instead. A few weeks later, Ellen was leaving the vet clinic when she heard growling coming from a vacant lot. It wasn't just any sound, she could hear the pain and desperation in a dog's voice. She went to check it out. A golden retriever was snarling at a pack of stray dogs that had already seriously injured him, but hadn't yet dared to finish the job. The retriever knew he wouldn't hold out much longer, but fought on like a last samurai. "Hey, buddy, come to me," Ellen shouted to the unfamiliar dog. She needed him to respond so she could throw some food to distract the strays and grab him. But she didn't know his name, so the chances seemed slim. The golden retriever looked at her, his eyes filled with both despair and hope, as if asking whether she was calling him. Come on, hurry, please," Ellen urged, knowing time was running out. His wounds were severe, and though her appearance had startled the strays, it didn't mean they wouldn't resume their attack. The scent of their opponent's blood was clearly spurring them on. Limping, the retriever made a break for Ellen. The strays growled, but parted. She grabbed his collar and tossed the sausages and bread she'd bought on the way to the strays. They glanced at their prey, then at the rare treat, and made the right choice. While the strays fought over the food, Ellen rushed back to the vet clinic. The dog needed help urgently. Luckily, Dr. Andrew was still there, and they quickly treated the wounds. "It's strange that strays attacked him. They usually don't do that," Andrew said. "I stepped out to chat with a friend and saw some woman throwing stones at them. Then this dog showed up and she drove off. Too bad I didn't get a picture." "So it was an attack, not a coincidence?" Ellen asked. "I didn't understand why those poor things would go after him. He wasn't taking anything from them." "Did you catch what the woman looked like? Blonde, tall, skinny, driving a red car. Didn't note the make, Andrew said. It's a shame there's no chip. We should call the owner. This dog's obviously purebred and well cared for, Ellen sighed. Sometimes they put contact info under the collar. Let's check. Andrew examined the collar closely and found a small engraving on a tag that was oddly tucked inside, which is why they hadn't noticed it at first. Look an address and phone number. Maybe we'll find the owner. Let's see how the dog's doing. Victor. Is that really you? Ellen recognized the voice of the man who'd adopted Oliver. She'd saved his dog. What a coincidence. You found Buddy. Victor said, overjoyed. That's his name? I guessed right then. Ellen said, surprised, and recounted the rescue story. Thank you so much. I'll come by and bring Oliver along. You two got along so well. Victor said happily. He paid for the treatment, though. Ellen didn't want to take money. Andrew made it clear they shouldn't refuse, as their moderate prices helped fund the clinic's shelter for completely unwanted animals. There you are, Buddy. Victor, a broad-shouldered brunette, rushed to hug the dog, tears streaming down his face without shame. Oliver gently petted the retriever's face. The dog was bandaged, but holding up bravely, clearly enduring pain, but acting like everything was fine. He's not having an easy time, but he'll be okay in the end. It's a good thing I was passing by, or it could have ended much worse. Ellen sighed, horrified at the thought that another 10 minutes, and the dog might have been gone. Buddy seemed to sense her thoughts and gently licked her. He likes you, Victor said, pleased. Ellen's liked by everyone, Oliver said with a smile. That's true. Victor agreed, explaining he spent most of his time on the road as a trucker and hadn't noticed Buddy slip his leash at Lucy's. I can't imagine how he ended up on the other side of town. I looked everywhere in our neighborhood. Can we talk alone for a minute? When Oliver went off to have tea with Andrew, Ellen shared what Andrew had seen. I don't want to make accusations, but that woman might look like your wife. To me, it's obvious she deliberately wanted to get rid of Buddy and set those strays on him. One of the wounds, by the way, is older and looks like it was caused mechanically. I hate to believe it, but it's possible. Ellen sighed. She didn't enjoy saying it, but if it was true, not only was Buddy in danger, but Oliver might be too. You can expect anything from someone capable of something like that, she added. Are you out of your mind? How can you think that about my wife? Maybe Buddy just got cut when he ran off and your vet imagined something. Are you making this up on purpose? Victor said, his face red with anger. Why would I need to? Ellen asked, hurt that he didn't believe her. It's obvious you wanted to adopt Oliver, but he went to us, Victor said. Fine, do what you want. Just be careful, please, for your son's sake and Buddy's too. It'd be a shame if... She trailed off and said goodbye. In the waiting room, Lucy was glaring at Buddy with hatred, but when Victor and Ellen walked in, she quickly put on a saccharine smile and chirped, Oh, I'm so glad our little doggy was found. I was out of my mind with worry. While Lucy babbled to Victor, pretending to be overjoyed, Oliver quietly slipped a note into Ellen's hand. She didn't read it right away, sensing the boy was scared of his stepmother. When she was alone, she unfolded the crumpled paper. I don't like Mom Lucy. She lies to Dad. When Dad Victor leaves, her friend comes over. Lucy doesn't love us. Ellen burst into tears. She'd so hoped everything had worked out, that everyone was happy, but clearly that wasn't the case. The next day, she tried to tell Victor about the note, but it only made him angrier. Listen, you're crossing all boundaries, harassing us with this slander. Never call me again. Get it through your head, Oliver isn't going to be your son. I'm grateful you saved Buddy, but my patience has a limit, he said. Ellen gave up on the futile effort and stopped calling, but she couldn't stop thinking about how to help Oliver, and probably Buddy too. Maybe even the head of the family was in trouble. Victor was wrong. She didn't hate him or feel jealous. She actually liked him. Lucy had seemed normal at first, but after her cruel act and Oliver's note, Ellen had to change her opinion. Andrew, can I leave after lunch? I'm not feeling great, she asked. Of course. Thanks to you, we made a killing yesterday. Victor was very generous, though his wife looked at us like we'd done something wrong. I even thought she resembled that woman, and her car's red, Andrew said. Ellen didn't confirm that he was right. She just wanted to go home and rest. She breathed a sigh of relief stepping into the fresh air outside the clinic, heading toward the bus stop. Suddenly, an expensive car screeched to a halt beside her. A red-headed woman with green eyes stepped out Katie. Has Jake told you about me? She asked, delighted. You were classmates. I saw your photo, Ellen said. That's not the whole story. We have quite a history. Jake mentioned you're pregnant and shouldn't get stressed. Let me drive you home and we'll talk, Katie said, smiling and opening the car door as if it didn't matter whether Ellen agreed or not. Ellen sighed and got in, feeling like running away was pointless with everything piling up. What did you want to say? She asked as they drank tea with a cake Katie had brought. It's not easy for me to say this, but Jake keeps hemming and hawing, and I'm tired of being in this limbo. You know he's trying to start his own business, right? Katie asked. Yeah, he borrowed money from Dimitri and someone else. Ellen nodded. No, you're mistaken, though. I'm not surprised. Jake always had a knack for stretching the truth. He borrowed the money from me. He's just burning through that company's cash. Katie said, Does he spend it on you? She asked. No, we live the same as always. Jake says there's no profit yet. Ellen said, starting to feel like she couldn't breathe as if she might faint. Why did he borrow from her? What for? She thought. Well, don't fool yourself. Sorry, but you're a simple girl, not in a bad way. I even find you likable. But Jake is clearly up to something. And, by the way, he's going to live with me starting today or maybe tomorrow, Katie said, smiling like a boa constrictor about to swallow its prey. What, you're forcing him to work off the debt? Ellen asked, bewildered. You could put it that way, but actually we love each other. It was agreed from the start that I'd help Jake as my future husband. It's not slavery, if that's what you're thinking. He wants this himself, but is afraid of upsetting you, Katie said. But why didn't he say anything from the beginning, before he even knew about the baby? I asked him, Ellen said, breaking down in tears. That's not my business. You'll have to sort that out yourselves. Jake owes me so much you could say he belongs to me, body and soul. Plus our feelings are pretty genuine. With you, he was just biding his time waiting for me. He said so himself, Katie said mercilessly, turning on a voice recorder. Ellen's husband had indeed said those exact words, even swearing he'd marry Katie. I need to leave, Ellen said. She couldn't stay there another second. More than anything, she wanted to disappear into the ground. Where to? Jake will be here in about 20 minutes. Shouldn't we discuss this like civilized people? Katie said, looking at her with disapproval. It's discussed. I understand everything, Ellen said, blowing her nose into a tissue, getting dressed, and practically running out, as Katie tried to clarify something else in excruciating detail. Ellen barely made it out onto Main Avenue. The street was crowded, and everyone seemed to bump into her. She couldn't breathe. Help! Please call an ambulance. She gasped, realizing she couldn't find her phone. Shame on you. Drunk so early in the morning, and so young an older woman said disapprovingly. Ellen caught her judgmental glance and understood why she was standing in pink fluffy slippers, barefoot, wearing a coat. It was a cold autumn day, so no wonder they took her for a derelict. I'm not, Ellen tried to defend herself, but the ground slipped out from under her. The woman's stern face softened instantly, and she caught Ellen with a gasp. Ellen came to in the pregnancy complications ward. The same woman was sitting beside her, looking guilty. Forgive me, dear. Life's been so hard, it's made me bitter. But they saved your little one. Oh, what happened to you? She kept saying. What's your name? Ellen asked. Irene Peterson. You're Ellen. Your passport was with you? She said. Thank you, Irene. And don't worry, it's a common story. My husband cheated, and his mistress came to tell me. That's why I ran out as I was and forgot my phone. Ellen said, How did they let you in? You're not family, she asked. I lied and said I'm your mother-in-law. I thought you might have nowhere to go, Irene confessed. You're right, I don't. It's divorce now, Ellen realized, and she started crying again. Now don't tear yourself apart like that. I live in a 3-bedroom apartment. My husband left my kids moved out. Stay as long as you need, and I won't take a dime. It's my fault, and I'm glad I can make it right, Irene said. Don't be afraid, here's your passport. I'm a normal person, worked as a teacher my whole life. I'm not cruel, just my kids don't call they've all abandoned me, she said, paling as if fearing Ellen would refuse. Ellen hugged the older woman with her weak arms. You're some kind of miracle. Not everyone would do this for a total stranger. I'll stay with you. Thank you, she said. She could have gone to Daisy, but Daisy came from a big family all crammed together, so it wouldn't have been convenient. Ellen's parents lived far away and were ill. She didn't want to worry them more. It felt like fate itself was opening its arms to her. Don't cry, the main thing is your baby's still here, Irene said, bursting into tears herself. I'll never say a cruel word to anyone again. What's happened to me, turning into a wicked old witch? Jake was stunned to learn his wife wasn't coming back. He was told she'd been picked up from the hospital by her mother-in-law. When he called Margaret, she roared in fury. She blocked me, that snake. I won't let her set foot in my house. Mom, why do you have to be so harsh? We're in trouble right now. And honestly, it's my fault, Jake tried to soften her anger. But it was no use. Her pride was wounded, and she wouldn't hear him out. I don't need any grandkids from her. Find someone else, she shouted at the end. Jake had found someone else, but Katie's love ended the moment she reviewed the documents and realized he'd been conned. I'll leave you with nothing. Sort it out however you want, she screamed. Wait, give me some time. My wife's gone, not answering my calls. Don't you love me? Aren't you supposed to support me? Jake said, shocked. You're mixed up. I was going to build a life with a king, not a beggar. You're just a pitiful debtor, and I'll shake every penny out of you. Katie replied, But I'm ready to marry you, Jake said, pulling out his last trump card, but it had no effect. Katie just laughed and suggested he start by selling his apartment. Loser, you let yourself be used, a toothless, spineless broke, hopeless nobody, she said as her final jab. Jake was enraged. He didn't know where to direct his helpless fury and decided Katie was right. He needed revenge. Since he had nothing left to lose, he planned to burn down the competitor's warehouse, where valuable blueprints were stored. We don't store data in the cloud, only on paper, Dmitri had told him when explaining why working with them was secure. Jake put on a suit, packed a gas canister and matches in a bag, and headed out. He still had a valid pass, and the people who'd scammed him didn't suspect how furious he was. Jake, sorry, but your pass has been revoked. The surprised guard said, What? Why don't you know I'm a junior partner with an entire floor leased here? Jake protested indignantly. Of course, but your wife came here and caused such a scene that Dimitri gave the order. The guard said, hesitating, but the message was clear enough. Ellen was here, Jake asked, stunned. It was hard to imagine his wife intimidating anyone, let alone Dimitri. No, not her your new wife or whoever she is. Redhead mean as hell. She slapped the boss so hard he nearly fell over. Just between us, the guard said, you can't keep me out. Jake tried to push his way through, but the guard dropped his politeness, restraining and searching him. He found the gas canister and matches. Well, this smells like a crime, Dimitri said, materializing out of nowhere, chuckling like a hyena. Jake froze. It seemed things couldn't get worse, but he'd managed to make it so. Katie was set to prove his fraud, and now there was an attempted arson all caught on camera. And then there was the debt Dimitri had saddled him with through deception, a debt he couldn't prove was a scam. Prison was closing in from every angle. Meanwhile, Victor couldn't shake Ellen's warning. He decided to look into it and discovered that Lucy had indeed been cheating on him. He was just her provider, housing, and money, while another man was for love. That's why she wanted to get rid of the problems, meaning Buddy and Oliver. She was hurting him when I wasn't around, Victor said, showing Ellen recordings of the cruel things Lucy had said to Oliver. Who recorded this? Ellen asked, shocked. Oliver himself. That's how bad she made things, Victor said, explaining that Lucy had been against adoption from the start. He'd since divorced her. I'm getting divorced too. I might even manage to keep my share of the apartment I put in the housing I got from the orphanage, so my husband's mistress can't take it. But that's a long story, Ellen said. How did you find me? She asked. Oliver gave me your number and said he'd forgive me if you'd be his mom and live with us, Victor said, blushing. Ellen laughed, though the situation wasn't exactly funny. She was lying in the pregnancy complications ward with no guarantee her baby would survive. Irene was taking care of her, but it would take a lot of time and effort to rebuild her life. Tell Oliver I agree to marry you and be his mom, Ellen said with a smile. Wait, no. Don't get me wrong. I could marry you. I like you. But you're joking, right? Victor said, blushing even more. Time will tell, Irene said, slipping into the room quietly and looking at Victor with approval. He'd seemed like a good match from the start. But first she needs to give birth, she added. Victor and Ellen exchanged glances and smiled involuntarily. Irene clearly wanted only the best for everyone. Victor started visiting more often. When Ellen gave birth to a healthy boy, Victor proposed for real, out of love, not just because he'd promised Oliver. Ellen accepted with joy, her feelings beyond words, and Oliver's happiness was so loud the whole hospital heard it. If you like this story, please support me by hitting the thumbs up button. It's a simple action, but it means a lot to me. Wishing you all the best.